News Talk 94.5 WPTI, 96.7 FM WTOB. You're listening to the Wealth Guardian Show with Doug Ray, helping you retire the job, but keep that paycheck. With you this morning is Garrett Ray and Brice Payne. And this morning we are talking about different apocalyptic predictions, perhaps for the new year. How you doing, Brice?
Happy New Year, Garrett.
Happy New Year.
I'm doing well. Had a good little break here. I know we did a rerun here last week because the Wealth Guardian's offices took a few days off in between the holidays. So I got to catch up on some football and started doing my tax stuff. But just as soon as the New Year's bell rings, I open up those spreadsheets and start working on that. I guess that's the anal retentive person in me, but getting that taken care of.
There's a good Simpsons episode I remember off of that.
The Simpsons have been around for 30 years, so there's a good Simpsons episode on everything. But anyway, we're going to start something a little different this year. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but since it's January now is the best time to do it, is we're going to slow down our chit-chat on football or what we did this weekend, kind of aimless talk, and focus it on a question so as to get to know the advisors of the Wealth Guardians. And we're going to do this each and every week, whether it's you and me sitting in here or you and your dad, and just ask a question about us and see what our answers are. And of course, you out there as well are free to ponder the question yourself and see what it says about you. So the very first one that we're going to start off with here is, and I'll ask you, and then Garrett, you can ask me. Garrett, what is the most beautiful place you've ever visited?
So the most beautiful place I've ever visited was completely unintentional. I got to see this place courtesy of the Navy. So it was a midshipman cruise. So technically I was still in college. I was on a full ride scholarship for Navy ROTC, and it was in between my junior and senior year. And so you have required military training in order to, learn the skills that you need to learn in order to be a young naval officer. Well, anyway, we were doing a transit. That means, it basically took off out of Norfolk, Virginia, transited across the North Atlantic, and we actually made a port call 3 weeks later into Scotland.
Okay.
And I got to do 3 days there, just kind of a long weekend type thing. And I remember getting on the public train from Glasgow over to Edinburgh. It's about a 2-hour ride, and it was just some of the most beautiful countryside. For a very quick, unintentional, not planned visit to a brand new country, very beautiful countryside. So that was, Scotland is beautiful.
And of course, your family and my family, we share our Scottish heritage as well. So I can relate to that. Haven't been over there yet, but I will go back to the homeland at some point. Well, so ask the question of me.
So Brice, what would you say the most beautiful place that you've ever visited in your life has been?
So if we're talking above ground, I would say Zion National Park, specifically the Narrows. Just you're in another world there with these canyon walls about 200 feet tall, but only about maybe 50 feet or so wide in between, and you're just looking up and they're beautiful reds and grays and blacks just on these walls, just like you're in another world, a different landscape. If we're talking
Utah, right?
No, that's in Utah.
Zion,
correct. Yeah, Zion's in Utah. Okay. And I stumbled across that, hadn't planned on, didn't know what the Narrows were when we went over there and just started walking through it. I was like, wow, this is surreal. And then if we're talking below ground or underwater, then I would say the coral reefs, particularly the best coral reefs that I've gone to are off of Roatan in the Caribbean.
Okay.
And just it's otherworldly. Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead, took up scuba diving later on in his years, and he had said if he had ever discovered scuba diving earlier on in his life, he would have never needed drugs. And I can understand that because you feel, there's a certain escapism there of putting on the tanks and going underwater and just being in this completely different world. So that's my answer. And cool. Good answer on your part. And thank you for participating in that. And I hope you had a good answer out there as well. But let's now go ahead and cut into the meat and potatoes of things here. And apocalyptic predictions, and will they ever come true?
Yeah.
And there's no shortage of apocalyptic messages is out there, whether you turn on the radio or go onto social media, the world's about to end. And so we want to kind of chase some of these.
Well, especially every new year, Brice, it's like, oh, what's going to happen in 2024? Yep. What apocalypse is on the horizon? And so, you've definitely picked out some good ones here that we hear from time to time.
Yes.
So, let's just jump right into it. I'll throw this first one at you, Brice. So the first apocalyptic prediction that you hear sometimes is Social Security is going broke, and they're going to have to cut everyone's benefit in order to keep it solvent. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so Social Security will never go broke because they're always going to have income coming in from people who are paying their Social Security taxes while they have a paycheck.
Sure.
But what is going to happen in the year 2034, 2035 is that the number of people paying into it, or the amounts being paid into it, are going to be less at that point than the withdrawals or the people
Correct.
Getting paid Social Security. But the trust fund will be wiped out at that point. But there will still be money coming into it. So it won't technically go broke, but what will happen is that Congress is going to have to change how Social Security is funded or who gets paid on it. And this is where people get a little scared. Is we hear the people who come to us and seek advice and are trying to decide if they want a financial planner and are the wealth guardians, the financial planners for them, they have a fear that they want to file for Social Security as soon as they can because it's going to disappear at some point.
Sure.
It's not going to disappear. And here's my cynical reason as to why. Who's going to decide whether or not it disappears? Are people in Congress.
Sure.
What are the congressman's number one goal in D.C.? I say this all the time.
Yeah, to get reelected.
Get reelected is their number one goal.
Yep.
Somebody who puts their name on a bill that is going to cut Social Security benefits for those receiving or about to receive Social Security are not going to get reelected. So it's a self-preservation move. Yeah. They will find some way to do something about Social Security before that final timer runs out on it. If they don't, then Social Security would only be able to pay about 75% of the benefits that people are entitled to. They're not going to let that happen. Now, does that mean that it's going to be a fiscally responsible thing that they are going to do? No, because they want to get reelected, and getting reelected does not always mean that you do something fiscally responsible. But they will do something to where somebody about to get Social Security or who is getting Social Security will get paid the benefits that they anticipated or were already getting. It's the people who are maybe 40 years old, 45 years old, before 50, that they'll change the rules for Social Security on those younger people. Because when they do that, the younger people who are working 40 years old, Social Security is not on their radar. So if congressmen change it, they're thinking, well, that doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to be getting Social Security anytime soon. It does matter to them. They're just not aware of it. So Social Security is not going to go broke. They will have to change the way it is funded, who gets it. Perhaps right now there might be some kind of means testing that goes on. There's a number of different solutions that could be on the horizon for it. But so that's one apocalyptic thing that is not going to happen. Don't worry. Social Security will be there. It just might change a little bit how it looks or how you get paid, but you will still get paid the amount that you were anticipating is my prediction.
Yeah, and I think kind of really what you're saying, Brice, is for those who are already retired or approaching retirement in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Even 10.
That's
even 10.
That's fine. It's those younger generations, you know, those in their 20s, 30s, 40s, that could have some changes that they have to negotiate over the next 20, 30 years of their career. That's fine.
And keep in mind, Social Security has evolved over the decades. It got started. It got started 80 years ago, and the full retirement age benefit started at 65 back then, but your life expectancy was 62. Right. So it was only designed to pay people in retirement for a couple of years.
Right.
Now people are getting paid for 30 years. So what Social Security is today has evolved significantly from what it was when it started. So it's going to continue to evolve as times change. Anyway, having said all that, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Wealth Guardians radio show. You've got Garrett and Brice in the chairs here. Doug's out this week, but he will join us next week. Happy New Year to you all. And what we're talking about in this episode, the very first episode of 2024, is apocalyptic predictions when it comes to finances. Do they ever come true? So that was the first one we talked about, Social Security. Let's move on to the second one, Garrett. The national debt is out of control, and tax rates are going to go through the roof at some point. Yeah. What are our thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly understand the concern. The national debt does seem to keep creeping up and up and up, and you know, some would say that it's starting to experience some even close to exponential growth here. at some point, you have to have intent to pay back on what you borrow. At least that's my personal belief. So I can certainly understand how there could be people out there looking around, absorbing the situation with the national debt and saying, taxes probably have to go up in order to make this solvent at some point. I tend to be in that camp that I think it is likely in the next, decade or so that we will see our tax rates go up. I don't know if through the roof, because there has to be a certain, there's a limit at which anyone's going to pay. I mean, even the Scandinavian countries pay, 50 and 60%, but they get a lot more cool stuff.
Social
for their tax base. If in America, unless we did some sort of massive fundamental change of the way our country is structured, which I don't anticipate, then you're not going to be willing to, the public's not going to be willing to pay up to a certain tax base. So it kind of ties back to your original point. Someone's going to have to sign a bill somewhere with their name on it. This is the typical, I think, tug of war that we have in Congress. That being said, I think it is a strong bet that taxes do go up in the near future.
They've run analysis on the current tax rates. By the year 2050, the government will only be getting enough money from our taxes to cover our debts, our loans.
Just the interest on the debt. Yeah.
Right. So there won't be anything else to pay for our military or anything. Right. So by that standard alone, yes, taxes are going to have to go up.
Sure.
If you are concerned about taxes and retirement and you want to make sure that your financial plan is taking all things into consideration, taxes, inflation, Social Security, and whether or not that's still going to be here, and you want to have a talk with a financial planner who are fiduciaries and who are well versed, perhaps somebody who is a retirement income certified professional like we are here at the Wealth Guardians, then let me give you a phone number. It's 336-391-3409. We meet with about 50 couples a year who are entering retirement or planning to enter retirement, and we see how we can help them adjust their portfolios, adjust their retirement tax strategies so that they have their portfolios or their assets grow and work for them, but yet they're handing over as little money as possible to the government upon that growth. So again, 336-391-3409. There is no obligation. There is no cost to sit down with us here, other than your gas to come into our offices and see what it is we do and how we might be able to help you. I would encourage you in the year 2024, if you haven't done it prior, let's go ahead and get you a financial plan set up. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and go into a break here. We're going to cover the rest of these in the second segment, apocalyptic predictions, and do they ever come true? But before that, Garrett's got a trivia question for me and for you out there as well. So put on your trivia hat here.
All righty, Brice. So over the holidays, there's candy involved, sweets, that sort of thing. My wife is a huge M&M's fan, and I'm just talking the original M&M's. So the trivia question I have for you is based around M&M's. There are currently in the M&M lineup these colors available to you: red, yellow, brown, blue, orange, and green. And my question is, of the colors I listed, which one is the most rare?
Okay.
All right.
All right. Very good. Stick around for the answer to that trivia question on the other side of this break. This is Brice Payne. With me is Garrett Ray. The show is The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep that paycheck. And this is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. And this is 96.7 FM WTOB. News Talk 94.5 WPTI. 96.7 FM, WTOB. You're listening to The Wealth Guardian Show with Doug Ray, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. I'm Brice Payne, along with Garrett Ray this week. And in the second segment, we're going to continue talking about apocalyptic economic predictions and will they come true. Now, before we get to our trivia question that Garrett asked me and asked you out there, I've got two questions for you. Same questions that we asked you in 2023 because they're very to the point. First question, are you looking forward to your retirement? Probably answered yes to that. Second question, do you want to make sure that you're making the best financial decisions for your retirement? Well, if you ever answered no to that, I'm hoping you answered yes in 2024 because it's a sensible question. Now, if you answered yes to those questions, and I'm sure you did, then I've got great news for you. We here at the Wealth Guardians, that's Doug, Garrett, and myself, offer a no-cost, no obligation, second opinion / review of your retirement plan. That includes a deep analysis of your assets, your insurance policies, your income needs, your risk tolerance, your risk exposure, your tax mitigation strategies, legacy goals, and even the fees that you are currently paying. Here's our goal. We want to help you lower your fees. We want to help you align your risk. We want to help you pay as little as taxes as possible and improve your overall retirement picture so you can indeed retire the job and keep the paycheck. But the ball is in your court. It's not in ours. So this is what you've got to do. You got to pick up the phone and give us a call, 336-391-3409. I'll repeat that for you, 336-391-3409. You can give us a call or visit us at thewealthguardians.com to set up your financial plan review with Doug, Garrett, and myself today. I want you to remember, the markets aren't going to wait for you. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get to this trivia question. Garrett, repeat it for me and repeat it for everybody out there, if you would.
Okay, so over the holidays, I was telling the story that my wife is a huge M&M's fan, and particularly just the original basic M&M's. Now, if we look at M&M's today, there are several colors you get to choose from inside of that bag. And they are red, yellow, brown, blue, orange, and green. Well, there was a statistician out there by the name of Rick Wilkins, and he wanted to know what color was the most rare. And so that's my question to you, Brice. What is your guess as to what color of M&M is the most rare?
Well, I'm going to have to... I grew up in the 80s, and I am a fan of rock and roll music, and I am well aware of the whole Van Halen thing with the green M&Ms and whatnot. But when I was growing up, there were no red M&Ms. Okay. They added those later on in the mid 80s, early 90s, somewhere in there. I'm trying to think of a bag. When I open a bag, what color do I see least often? And I think I'm going to have to go with. Boy, this is a tough one. Let me go with yellow.
Oh, it is brown.
Is it what?
Brown. Yep, it is the least.
Oh no.
Yep.
That's the buzzer I'm trying to hit there. I was thinking I'm never going to have to hit that buzzer in 2024. Well, so much for that.
So this is an interesting background.
The brown ones are I would have thought that was the most common.
I did too. So again, statistician Rick Wilkins, he had the same question. So he works for SAS, which is a computer program.
that job.
Yeah, it's a computer programming job. But he had this question, and so he determined that M&Ms are actually made in 2 factories across the United States. One's in Cleveland, one's in New Jersey. Okay. Now his studies also found that the 2 factories don't produce the same consistency. Imagine that. But if you're just the average consumer nationwide, you don't know if you're getting a bag from New Jersey or a bag from Cleveland. So out of all of M&M's offerings, what is the most rare color? He found that only 13.48% were the color brown. The most popular color, the most common color, green.
Yeah, green.
At 19.5.
I could have gotten that one.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That would have been absolutely, aside from green, that would have been the last color. I would have said red, yellow, blue, or orange before I would have said brown.
See, I thought it was blue. Because I seem to remember them making a big deal about the blue M&M a couple of years ago. It's probably been a couple decades, but yeah.
Okay, well, good trivia question out there. If anybody out there answered brown, good on you, because you are eating from different bags of M&Ms than I am, apparently. I'm probably getting the New Jersey bags, and they're all
you go.
It's all brown is all I get. Anyway, okay, well, let's go ahead and continue on our conversation here about apocalyptic economic predictions and will they come true? And in the first segment, we talked about Social Security and is it going to go broke? And then we talked about the national debt and is it out of control? And so let's talk now about, Garrett, climate change is a serious problem, if you believe the scientists. And our economy needs to be overhauled in order to deal with it.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on this?
Man, we're just getting all the heavy hitters here today.
We are. This is we're not going to be talking about light stuff in 2024, apparently.
No. So, I mean, the phrase our economy needs to be overhauled in order to deal with it. I don't know if I agree with that phrase.
That was exactly what I had a problem with the way they phrased it, overhauled.
I mean, it's so, I think that as, stewards of the earth and as just, I'll use my own background as an engineer, you like to be a problem solver. So if this is a problem that we need to solve, then our economy is going to have to adjust.
Adjust is the right word. Right.
Now, is that going to happen overnight? No. There's too much entrenched industry and, quite frankly, dependent consumers on the way that we currently use energy in this, modern world. I don't think, on a personal belief, that fossil fuels are ever going to go away completely. But can you use fossil fuels more efficiently? Are there other alternative sources of energy? Sure, there are, and we need to make sure that those are fully developed from a production standpoint and they're cost effective and all that good stuff. But I don't like the phrase of saying that we're going to completely overhaul the economy in order to combat climate change. That, to me, that seems like kind of a boogeyman title, like a kind of a gotcha scare tactic type deal. I'm not a fan of that type of like headline. You know, we got to overhaul the economy. Right. Do we need to be calculated and smart about how we have our energy out there in the economy? I think we do. To use a financial advising term, it'd be nice to diversify that portfolio of energy, between multiple different sources. So that's kind of my approach to it.
No, I agree with it completely. And it is going to be the country out there that does the best adjusting and the quickest adjusting that's going to work for them long-term economically for that particular country. So you always want to be on the forefront. You want to be ahead of the other countries when it comes time to adjust. Yeah. Gosh, when we discovered fossil fuels back in the 1800s, and they finally realized or quickly realized, hey, this can change how we get from A to B. So the companies that said, hey, let's stop producing horse carriages and start producing the combustible engine, those are the companies that survived that change. Sure. And so if changes are happening again, that fossil fuels are not going to be the main source of energy for vehicles, then the company that is picking up on that, and hopefully those companies are based here in the United States as opposed to China or India. Nothing against those countries, but I'm an American. So that is yes. Is the economy going to need overhauled? No, but does it need to be able to adjust to things as science adjusts? Yes, of course.
Exactly. And technology.
Yeah. So very good. All right. So if you're just tuning in, you're continuing to listen to the Wealth Guardian Show with Garrett and Brice, and we're talking about apocalyptic predictions I can't say that word today. Apocalyptic predictions when it comes to the economy and finances, and are they going to come true? If you would like to sit down with the Wealth Guardians and see if you are taking into account all of the things that need to adjust with your portfolio and with your tax mitigation strategies and make sure that your retirement is coming true the way that you want it to, then I would encourage you to pick up the phone and give us a call at 336-391-3409. I imagine this is not the first time you're listening to this show, and you know by now that we are fiduciaries and that we are retirement income certified professionals. We are holistic financial planners, and we want to make sure that everything in your portfolio is in sync so that you are properly diversified in your portfolio, but yet you are holding on to as much of that growth as possible and giving as little over to Uncle Sam as possible. Those are items that a holistic financial planner helps you do. That would also include making sure that you're filing for Social Security in the right way as well. We tackle all of that for you to make sure that your entire financial picture is in sync with itself. 336-391-3409. Garrett, we got time for one more quick one here before we are done with this first segment or the first weekend of 2024. Here we go. Higher interest rates will grind the economy to a halt eventually and crash the housing market because no one will ever want to move while they have 3% interest rates on current houses. What are your thoughts on that? Oh, you want me to go first on that?
Well, I mean, I think that's we certainly are seeing interest rates have basically a stagnation point right now when it comes to the housing market because, I think the reverse is true. Very few people are wanting to jump into a mortgage that's, close to 8%. And then those who find themselves in a low mortgage from just 2 or 3 years ago, that 2.5%, 3% that we saw, I mean, they're not jumping at the bit to move. But that being said, if they do have to move, then the question becomes, are they going to refinance the next home or, do they presumably have their home paid off so that then, maybe the mortgage isn't a certain thing. But I agree that it's a sticking point right now in my belief in the housing economy that unless we see prices start to come down significantly, it's just really difficult to jump into that really high interest rate mortgage. It
is, but that might have an impact on people who are in one home, a husband-wife couple, and they're thinking about moving to another home. But families grow. You need to expand how much room you have in a house. People move out of their parents' house or, get into a job where they can afford a house. And people downsize as well when they move out of a house. So people are going to continue to move. It might slow down the new housing build construction for a time, but we're talking about 5 years or so. That's what happened in the 2000s when we had the financial crisis due to the real estate market crash. Apocalypse means forever.
Right.
And so 5 years is not an apocalyptic event, in my opinion. So, yes, could something like higher interest rates change a little bit how the housing market operates for the next couple of years? Yeah. Yes. Is it apocalyptic? No.
I would agree with that.
All right. Well, what I hope you agree with is that you learned something here on this first radio show for the Wealth Guardians in 2024. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have this week. I want to thank you for joining us and hope you join us next week. I hope the rest of your week is everything you want it to be. This is Brice Payne with Garrett Ray. The show's the Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And I want you to remember, sound financial plans do not create themselves. This is Newstalk 94.5 WPTI, and this is 96.7 FM WTOB.